I think that's Christina. Is there, okay, is that, now see, I didn't see her raise. Okay.
Christina, can you hear us now?
Yes, thank you.
Hear us? Yeah, you can. All right.
Yeah, we're just starting now.
All right, roll call and call the meeting to order at 3:30 on January 21st. This is a special hybrid meeting and it's the Board of Selectmen. All right, I'm Judy Neville.
Todd Lampert.
Karen Willett.
Okay, we're going to discuss Article 3 of the Town Charter. We have with us Deanna Carlson and the rest of the Board of Selectmen will follow. All right, all yours.
I'm sorry, it's all mine.
Yeah, you're on.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I guess,
All right, you want us to ask questions first, or do you want to present? It's
um,
up to you.
well, I've been at all the meetings, so I've
You don't
sort
have
of,
any-
I've sort of articulated a few things. I can bring up a few things, based on the conversations that I've witnessed over the last number of meetings. I would,
You want to talk about elected versus
Yeah,
appointed first?
yeah,
and
we can do
then
that.
Term limits, which I'm not so sure we can even do. I haven't gotten a legal opinion on that yet.
yeah,
By the way, Kathleen, term limits, there's 2 of them on the Board of Selectmen in Wilton. So I'm waiting for that legal opinion. I think that may be allowed after all. But, yeah, okay, and then we'll do, well, certainly the term limits and then the appointed, all the ones we talked about. All right.
all right.
Go ahead.
So I guess if we wanted to start with, I'm going to probably be a little broader than the conversations that I've witnessed recently on the elected versus appointed. I am not in favor of an elected planning and zoning board or an elected board of finance or elected town clerk or elected treasurer. And the reason for that is that I believe all 4 of those, well, 2 positions, 2 boards, all of those require specific skill space to do the work. And, you know, so like me being elected as first selectman or Amy and Steve or the town council, I would argue that those are very generalist positions. I mean, you're talking about any number of ordinance that you're taking up. They don't have to be in a specific area of government. You know, you can get up to speed often on, you know, on the issues. I feel like that's kind of what I've spent most of my term doing. The Board of Finance, you really do need people who understand finance. It isn't helpful to have people that don't understand budgeting or, you know, financial operations, pension funds, things like that. It's not helpful to the board. It would just, you know, and you could actually do things that aren't in the interest of the taxpayers if you have people that don't understand those things. I would also argue that the planning and zoning is similarly situated. I mean, there's, as you've heard over time, you know, over the last number of hearings, there are so many land use laws, and yes, we're advised by attorneys, but, you know, you really do need people that either have, you know, the expertise in real estate, architecture, law, you know, just the areas that are touched by land use. And I also don't believe specifically for those 2 boards, term limits are appropriate because it takes a really long time to get the knowledge base on all of Connecticut state statutes that you have to employ to deal with a lot of the land use cases. And you do start to get a body of expertise by serving. You know, I think you heard Dan Radman say, I mean, I think I have a file here. I don't know if I brought it in today or not, but oh yes, I do. I had my admin for both the Board of Finance and the Planning and Zoning Commission go through how long each of the commissioners had been on the commission. There's a great breadth. You've got a couple commissioners who've been on there for, you know, 10, let's see, like the longest serving Board of Finance member is at 11 years. And Todd, you know, the chairman is 9 and 8, but then you have 7, 6, 4, and then we have the alternates that are 1 and 2 years. So it's a great, you don't want to but all new people. You need that expertise to help guide everybody else through the process, the budgeting process, the pension process, those kind of things. And then, and then those people will get up to speed, kind of like what Dan said the other day, where you have the Planning and Zoning Commission. I mean, Dan's the longest serving, followed by John, but then you have a bunch of 4s and 3s, and then the alternates have been 3 and 2 years. So it's just, I think it naturally happens that you get some longer serving commissioners who really help guide the board. And then you get these younger commissioners who are led by them, but then also get up to speed and then become the future leaders. And it just happens naturally. Planning and zoning in particular, I know Todd, you presented, is, we always say, the hardest working board. I mean, those meetings are
Long.
very
Right.
long. You have to be giving up a ton of time. It's an uncompensated board, and they take a lot of heat. And so I think it's I think we have a great system here. And I think I've told other people, it's been put to me, well, why don't we just put it to the voters what they think? And I said, well, what voter isn't going to say, yes, I want an elected board? I mean, we're Americans. We like elected. I mean, it's just in our DNA. I would vote that way if I didn't understand what's going on. But I think once you get into government and you really see the workings of what we're doing, there are certain things that really should not be elected in this town. I think they're more effective. And, I've heard the argument, well, Westport and Wilton, and I'm thinking, have you been to Westport and Wilton lately? And I love those communities. I have friends in those communities. The development that's been going on there is concerning. It's been really heavily developed, and I think we are very fortunate here to have people who've been amazing stewards of our land resources and really control development as best as we can. I mean, there's laws that you have to deal with, but I think we've had just excellent stewards of our Planning and Zoning Commission. And then with the town clerk and the town treasurer, I actually also had, so the town clerk, I would probably deal with most specifically. It is a position that really impacts the staff in this building. There's a lot of touch points, and there are some things that could be improved in the operations of that office. But because that's a person that's elected and feels, that person's office, they don't make those improvements, and their response, and the elector wouldn't necessarily know of those issues with some automation issues that need to be dealt with. I mean, we have town staff that in New Canaan, we have staff that has to physically walk into the clerk's office to get deeds. Whereas in most other communities, that information is online, and like the assessor's office could just access a deed online to do his or her work. And there are controls set in place by our clerk that doesn't allow that. So it's a huge inefficiency because there's like physically walking. I feel like we're in the 1950s. Like, wait, you walk into the office and go get the deed.
Are you including that in the budget? The systems update? So
no, because
available?
that's under the purview of the clerk, and the
Yes.
clerk doesn't have an interest in doing that. So
Right now, the clerk's elected, and you're saying the
Yes.
clerk should not be elected.
I
too.
think it is a skills-based, that position has so many rules and regulations associated with it. You really need somebody who's trained as a clerk and understands it. And there are people across the state. I think by having an appointed position, you could also open it to a non-resident. I mean, in other towns, I can tell you that Westport in 2021 moved to an appointed clerk, and Ridgefield in 2027 will be transitioning to an appointed clerk for those reasons. I mean, I think, and if, we also, I mean, I'll just be honest, we have a very inefficient office. Like, we have many more staff and much more overtime in that office than surrounding communities. I mean, Fairfield is a much bigger town. They have, less staff than we do and almost no overtime. They don't bring overtime in, and we have a lot of overtime here. So I just think that there are somebody that's a professional in that industry would be, and I'm not saying our clerk isn't, it's just, I think because it's elected, there's not the accountability to the staff here. It's an election, and a lot of the electorate don't know the inefficiencies that are in here.
Yeah, Jan, I actually, maybe I'm misunderstanding. I thought all of our stuff is online as far as deeds.
The deeds you'd have to, like, you can get like a property record.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I can see what was, like if I look up, you know, an address, that's not the deed.
Yeah.
So, and there are things that, and so when a new deed comes in, like there are functions within our system that, you know, our assessor can't access. He is not given access, whereas in other towns, I was talking to our town CFO, in all the towns she's worked in, the assessor's office has access to the clerk system to be able to update, like our assessor has to update land records, you know, when there's sales and, you know, any adjustments and all that kind of stuff. It's all manual right now because he's not given access to that system. So there's just.
So far it is that though. I mean, it shouldn't be a drop dead issue. I mean, why can't it just be installed and put in and accessed? And that just doesn't sound so difficult.
You would think it wouldn't be.
It's the clerk's decision.
But I know, but why, I'm saying, why would she not agree to that?
I think there's a belief of protection of privacy, which I think there are ways to ensure privacy. I mean, there's all kinds of, we're in a digital era, everything's moving to digital. And I can tell you, I've talked to attorneys. I mean, I've talked to, you know, I don't know that you do real estate sales work, but I've talked to attorneys who work in real estate. Deeds are very backlogged. So, you know, and I think there'll be the assumption that there wasn't enough staff for a period of time, but, you know, we were backlogged before the staff, there was a problem with the staff. So I've been told that the title companies were not their favorite town because there's a very long lag between a property transaction and a deed being recorded. So I can't do anything about that. Like I don't run that office. It's been made very clear to me. I don't run that office and I don't have oversight of that office. So I think it's there's just a lot of things that different parts of this town hall need to work with the clerk's office. So I think it would be better if it was all under one.
So other than those, are there any other changes you would make as far as elected as compared to appointed? Or do you like the way everything sits right now other than
Treasure.
The treasurer? Do you want me to go in treasurer?
Yeah.
Why? So
Are you done with town clerk?
Yeah, I just think that and I would just say, you know, Ridgefield the way they're doing the transition is at the end of their town clerk's current term in 2027, then that will transition. So they're, you know, letting that, you know, that elected person move through, but that's how that's working. With the town treasurer, I had the CFO do a survey of 28 towns in our area. And of those 28 towns, 9 of them are appointed. 8 of them have, like, there's no, like, it's either not a treasurer, or it's a job of the CFO. Like it's still it's an appointed or it's a staff position. And then 11 of them are elected. And again, I will tell you, Westport doesn't have a treasurer. It's part of the CFO's job. And Ridgefield, let's see, what is Ridgefield? I know they moved the treasurer. Ridgefield, she has it as elected. So maybe that isn't maybe they're different there. But And in talking to one of my colleagues in another community that I don't want to deal with right now because it isn't happened yet, they are also looking to transition town clerk and treasurer, because the treasurer position really should be somebody who is an expert in the financial markets, not an accountant, that person is investing and doing bond, that's a very specific role. And so, it's, I think it's, and we're spending quite a bit of money. I mean, we're spending a lot, $40,000 on a part-time position, for, somebody that doesn't have, I don't think it's justified for the volume of work. So,
Or the amount of time.
or the amount of
Or
time.
both.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Either one.
Well, a few
Right.
basis points here and there makes a big difference.
I can tell you in the last,
Yeah.
anybody that wasn't making a lot of money, and yes,
I was gonna
I think
say,
we're
it's-
really going to see the value where we need that is in a down market.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, when the interest rates are going up, everybody's making money and whatever. So, but you need somebody who's sophisticated about duration and, how to modify investments. And, sometimes you do take the loss because you can invest it more appropriately. These things too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not in this era, you can really do a lot with somebody who's very sophisticated in the financial markets. So, and we live in a town, we are blessed to live in a town that has a lot of those people that, would gladly do it as, a volunteer position or advise the CFO. I mean, Anne does a lot of work with our banks and things like that. So that would be another recommendation.
How would you structure it if it was up to you?
I think there's a couple different ways you can do it. I think I quite honestly think the CFO could do that in consult with, how we have a RPAC under the Board of Finance for our pension. I think we have our,
Subcommittee?
it could be a subcommittee of the Board of Finance to oversee it, or I think that's probably the best. Those people are I know we have people in the Board of Finance who are very savvy in that area. So,
So
Yeah.
that sounds like you would prefer to sort of get rid of the role itself and absorb it into the Board of Finance or.
I think it should stay in,
CFO.
I actually think it should stay in the CFO and have a reporting to because the CFO knows how much cash we have. Like the Board of Finance is not monitoring our cash position. They're not knowing what bonds are maturing. They're not keeping track of all of that day to day. And there's very strong banking relationships that our CFO manages. So I would say the CFO needs to be probably the primary, and then you could have a reporting into like the first selectman in the Board of Finance. I think that's probably the right structure for that position. I'm trying to think if there's others, because I think most of them, a lot of them report to the first selectman or mayor, but it really is as a subset of, because the CFO reports to this,
Right.
So I think that person is the most aware of what's going
Who
on.
does the treasurer report to right now?
The electorate.
Not to the CFO.
They work with the CFO, and they make presentations to the town council and the Board of Finance, but as a reporting relationship,
Yeah.
there's not a reporting relationship. They're elected.
Okay. All right.
But what about, and this, the CFO is not a taxpayer. CFO is an employee.
Right,
If you want to checks and balances and you
Right.
want to maintain that distance,
right.
then it would be under the Board of Finance.
Yeah, I think it could be
And then the day-to-day could be handled by the CFO. I would be concerned about that separation of powers
Yep.
and checks and balances. That
Yeah.
would be my.
Now we're audited. So, I think at the end of the day, the financial check and balance is there's an audit
That's
every
right.
year.
Yeah.
So, I think we are getting audited annually. So, but I think, reporting, Anne does that she comes to every Board of Finance meeting anyway.
Yeah.
And
but
she
there-
does
but the
reports on our
responsibility,
cash
the direct
position.
line. There's an indirect, but there's a
Yeah.
direct line.
But the
Direct line.
day-to-day reporting, Anne already reports to me on the CFO reports to the first selectman already. So if you wanted to add another dotted line to the Board of Finance as a reporting, I think that is fine. I think that's absolutely fine.
If you don't mind, I'm going to jump into for 7 minutes. So our section that we're responsible for is actually selectmen and first selectmen within the
Okay.
charter,
Okay.
which it's impossible to talk to any of you without getting your full view, which
Right.
we need as
Right.
well. And I just wanted to know and I don't want to put you on the spot if you've read every word.
And I
sure you
have
have.
read it, but I read a lot all day long.
Yes.
So
So for those particular sections, the
Yeah.
first selectman is, about
Right.
an inch long. It's
Right.
It's very,
Right.
it's short. And
Yep.
then the Board of Selectmen, is there anything within there that you would change, update, that you
Yeah.
think is?
So I do think, it was interesting. Kevin mentioned the other day that, the police commission and the fire commission. I think right now there is some administrative. I think there needs to be some kind of oversight. There's no required oversight by human resources and things like that with the police commission. And I think because that's a volunteer board and they're not necessarily, I think that there needs to be some kind of, I don't know if some of the language should say in consultation with the Board of Selectmen or something, because by bringing it into the Board of Selectmen, you're bringing in all the resources of town hall. So Cheryl the HR director can help with certain things that,
And do you mean just specifically to hiring within,
and union, we
And
help with
negotiating,
union- Yeah.
okay.
So right now they're autonomous.
They're complete. So the first selectman recommends commissioners, and then the Board of Selectmen approves. And then once those commissioners are seated, the first selectman has no oversight of the police or, fire. So, which is to the communities.
About that.
Which
because
to the
I thought
community
I
always
did.
thinks I have some kind of, with all the things that have been going on, people will email me and I'm like,
I
you
know.
need to email the chief of police. Now, it's, sometimes that's meant.
Yeah, I think
But there
Kevin
isn't in
mentioned the
state
same.
statute Either. There
Right.
isn't. So it's.
Yeah.
It's really.
We're unusual here. I
Very,
mean, we're
very
unusual, but,
unusual.
yeah, so when you want to make improvements or suggest improvements that could be made over there, it's like, well, thank you.
Yeah. I want to follow up on, if it's okay.
Yeah, you go.
With the concept of the first selectman and the Board of Selectmen. I've heard some people say that 3 is not enough, that we should have 5.
Yeah.
Have you heard that at all? And do you have any opinion on it?
I have heard it and I don't agree with it. I think, we really sort of are the body that, in addition to staffing, we approve all, contracts and approve. So once the budget has been set, we're the purchasing agent for the community. So we're really going through all the, Tiger needs to spend money on a project, or, the garden club wants to, get money for something, we're the ones approving that. I don't think you need to, it shouldn't be like, when you have a well-functioning Board of Selectmen, it should be fine to have 3 people.
I guess what I'm thinking about is, and I know the 3 of you function great together.
Yep.
If it's another group of 3 that doesn't function
Right.
well together in the future, 5 years from now,
Right.
7 years, you've had enough,
Right.
Do you think that may be a good idea? You still say 3 is the right number?
I think 3 is the right number.
Okay.
I think it gets overly complicated, and I think you could actually add more problems if you have more people. I think it is, I think there have been specific issues in the past that have been resolved through elections.
Okay.
Should I say that?
Sure.
I think that's I think that's a fair way to,
Mhm.
you know, our meetings are public. When things aren't working well, the public sees it. And you know what? And then you change things up.
Yep.
Okay.
For me, anything else in the charter, even outside of section 3 that you've seen that you thought would benefit us looking at to maybe make changes with?
I know that there was some comment about, possibly moving some boards and commissions into the charter. I would not recommend moving any boards or commissions into the charter. I would, I think, you know, I think the fact that they're in the ordinances is better, because if you need to like dissolve a commission over time that, you know, isn't functioning anymore, the only way you can do that is opening the charter. Whereas if it's in an ordinance, then you can be nimble and you can modify, and it has to go through the town council. All of that goes through the town council. It's a publicly vetted process. I don't think you want to be opening up the charter every
How about
5
the
seconds.
historic commission?
The historic district, I don't think it needs to be in the charter.
Would you take out the ones that are in the charter?
I
Or just leave it
personally don't think
inconsistent?
boards and commissions should be in the charter.
Okay.
I think they should all be, you know, I think they
Talking
should,
all of them or such as,
And-
you want to give us examples?
I don't think the audit committee should be in the charter. I think, you know, I think it should all be in the ordinances. And but I mean, the ones that are there, I'm not saying
Yeah.
take them out. I don't have a problem. I just think from a good governance standpoint, I think you may find over time certain things are not necessary, or you can't get people to fill those. I mean, I can tell you Darien is trying to cut down on the numbers of boards and commissions they're having. They have way too many. And so they're in their charter, and it is, you know, it's going to be a long haul. It's going to be a slog.
And that reminds me of a question that I had it's the charter's a little bit inconsistent in terms of which like paid appointed roles are in the charter. So for example, the assessor is in there, but the buildings chief is not.
Right.
Do you have any opinion on that?
I think it's fine because the building chief is a state.
Right.
It's a state requirement that we have that. So, you know, I don't think that you need to put it in the charter. I think
Right.
the state statute overrides anything we have in our charter, unless it says, you know, you can go to the charter. But so I don't think it's necessary.
Okay. I wasn't sure if there was any particular reason some were previously
Yeah.
in there and some, like, you know,
I
the
don't
animal
I know. I
control
don't know
is
the
a,
genesis of why some of these things got into the charter and didn't. I don't think, you know, I know the argument was that it makes it more important if it's in the charter. I disagree.
I don't know if that's
I don't
true.
think it is. I think the ordinances are very important. You have to adhere to them, and they are, you know, vetted publicly. So, I'm trying to think what else.
You want to speak to the ethics committee? You wanted that one out, or you wanted it?
I mean, if you, I think it's fine. I'm not,
It needs to be totally restructured, but as far as conceptually, would you?
I don't know
leave
that
in
it
the
needs to be
charter?
restructured.
Oh, no.
Why?
It's
Okay,
not working. Not used.
well, I don't know that that's a bad thing that it's not used.
No.
I think it's maybe a good thing that it's not used. It was, I think, you know, it's there if someone needs to use it, it's used, but it by its very nature is going to be a like feast or famine type of board, because, you know, hopefully we don't get too many, but, you know, you also, you know, we'll have times when you need them. And I think it's good we have one. And, you know, we had to reconstitute. So, you know, I think for the last couple months, because we had a bunch of the ethics commissioners move into other roles, need to reconstitute that board. We've now reconstituted it, but, you know, so, and so, you know, has it been abused in the past by, residents? Yes. But, you know, that's what they're there
Residents or
for.
employees?
Resident, I don't, you know,
It's open to residents,
Everybody.
commissioners, and employees, right?
yeah,
should-
everybody.
Yeah,
It's open to everybody.
yeah.
I mean, the employees also have a personnel
Yeah,
thing that they
have a
can go
ladder,
through.
But
But
they can also,
absolutely,
Yeah.
it's open to everybody.
it should be.
It's
yeah.
open to everybody, and they have to, you know, I mean, you know, we can all date ourselves back far enough to certain residents abusing it. So, you know,
Deanna, as your position, not whether you agree or disagree with anybody, have you had any complaints from citizens coming to you regarding the charter that they would like things to be changed, irrespective if you agree or disagree with them?
Yeah.
Is there any, other than elections, which we already know, you know? it's
believe it or
the-
not, I mean, no one has approached me about
Okay.
charter changes.
Yeah,
I mean, I haven't even gotten an email about it.
lucky you.
They're not tuned in.
But I'm not on the charter
They're
commission.
not, they're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I wasn't, you're a
Yeah.
visible person. I wasn't sure. if
Yeah,
anybody- no.
nobody has emailed me, but maybe because I'm not on this commission
Sure.
and it's independent, so they wouldn't think that I'm the right person to go to.
All right.
And I think I have one more question and then we probably should go to next victim. Right now I'm going to forget what my question was. Oh,
You got it.
the Board of Finance is requires approval by the town council, your appointments, or the Board of
Yep.
Selectmen's appointments.
Yep.
What do you think about like P and Z or any other board or commission adding that step for their appointments as well? Any value in that? Any downside?
I mean, if you feel like you need to give to the public for that, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I don't think we have a problem. I think, you know, obviously there are residents in the community who are very unhappy with planning and zoning decisions. I understand that. I totally understand it. And you're going to hear from those people that are not happy with a decision that was made.
Mhm.
But I would tell you, by and large, you know, most people in this community, unless it impacts them direct, have no idea what's going on with the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Right.
Thank you so much for being here and for all you do for the town.
No,
Appreciate it.
thanks
Yeah,
for,
thank you.
thank you guys for doing this. This is not an easy lift, so.
And thanks for
Harder than
coming
we
to all
thought.
the other meetings and giving your input too.
Gosh,
Yeah, thank you. All right.
I'm not sure who is officially
Nick
next.
Williams is- Nick is Nick. You're 4 o'clock. You're.
Lucky me.
Whatever.
Oh, yeah. Oh. Getting cold, it's getting cold.
It's freezing. I
It's
mean,
gonna
it's
keep getting
totally
colder.
freezing. It's gonna get
Polar
worse.
vortex is descended on.
Yes, it is coming. You want to start with elected versus appointed and we'll go down the same major issues.
Or if you had any prepared, some people
Or-
come with
yeah,
prepared
certainly.
remarks.
Thankfully, I do not have any.
We've had totally prepared statements, so we're good either way.
Got it. Thank you. So when you talk about elected versus
Appointed
appointed, you want to talk about the context
across the spectrum.
across the spectrum. I think we have enough elected officials in this town. As a reminder, we have a town council, which most municipalities don't have. You can look it up as they say. That's 12 people. The few jurisdictions that have municipalities that have town councils, I think, are typically 9. And they're not that many, as I said. And our
9
folks,
in what part of the,
9 members. We have 12.
yeah, I know.
It's a lot.
So
I don't think there's
normal is
anybody-
9? Yeah.
I think Judy,
Yeah.
the existence of a town council is a bit abnormal. Now, part of that is because we probably got rid of the representative town meeting before
Mhm.
a lot of other folks did.
You know
A
when
lot
that
of towns in in Connecticut still have RTMs, including those close by. And the town council members, and I'm not doing this to dump on the town council, I can expand on that, but I'm just saying, elected versus volunteer, we've got to be careful that that balance is always such that we won't have a dearth of folks running for office, because that's another step. It's one thing to serve in government. It's another issue to serve in government and to get there by getting elected, which is a whole separate process. But back to town council, you know, the 4-year term, so it's a significant commitment amongst 12 people. So, you know, if you're talking about the Board of Finance, if you're talking about P and Z, which I've been hearing lately, no, I'm not supportive of that because I just think that, you know, we've got enough people that are serving elected positions.
Okay, what about term limits or what about the numbers on the?
You know, I am not knee jerk for or against term limits. I can see their value. I can also see where, you know, as I look at this, it depends on the nature of the term. I mean, there's a difference between term limits for a 2-year term, as is the selectman, versus say 4 years for town council. But you know, if that's something that folks are demanding, and I'm not hearing anything. I heard you asked Deanna, has she had any questions about I've never had a single question about the charter in 20 years of government. That's not to say that the charter isn't important. It is. And we can talk about the difference between charter and ordinances. I think Deanna made a good point, which is, you know, I'm a lawyer. The law is the law, whether it's set by state statute, which will always supersede anything we do as a town, state statute, and beyond that, you've got the federal constitution and state constitution. But the law is the law, whether it's by charter or by ordinance, and that's important to keep in mind.
No, I agree. What else would you want to talk about treasure and you want to talk about the?
Yeah, I mean, I'll make this comment, and I would say this with respect to any town body, any town position, you whatever that, and I would implore you to, as the CRC, to look at all of this in a vacuum, to not personalize the elected office depending upon who's happens to be sitting in that office at a given time for a given thing. You've got to look at that office in a vacuum if you can. I know sometimes it's tough to do. And to make a determination, you know, what is the value of that position? What is the value of that commission, that organization, you know, in town? And you know, having said that, look, the treasurer, town clerk for that matter, these are important positions, historic positions, mandated by the state, not necessarily on a voted elected basis, but, you know, they do serve a purpose. And, you know, I have, with respect to either one of those offices, I have not had, you know, personal complaints. There might have been some complaints about individuals over the years conducting those offices. But in terms of the position itself, I don't think there's any question that there's value in having a town clerk. That's a person who organizes the immense number of records that we have in this town. And now with FOIA, that's even more important than ever.
Elected or appointed?
Regardless, regardless, the office of town
Yeah, it
clerk
has
is
to-
important
you have
because
to
he or
have it,
she
yeah.
has to respond. Ultimately, FOIA responses are going to involve very often the town clerk. And we have lots of FOIA requests or demands, as you know.
So I didn't ask Deanna this on purpose. 2-year term for first selectman, too short, or are you good with that?
Hey, you know, Todd, you know, I'm thinking there's an election next year for selectmen. We just had an election.
And I asked a question based on continuity. Is 2 years ever enough? And I know most of our first selectmen in the recent history have been several terms. You know, I don't think I've seen a one term in.
Yeah, the over under is about 5.5 years.
Yeah.
Last I checked.
Yeah.
Look, being beholden to the electorate is important. I think, you know, when the first selectman was also and we can talk about Board of Finance being elected, but when the first selectman was the chairman of the Board of Finance, as you or Judy, you had the Board of Finance subservient to the demands of the town through the first select person, who is up for election every 2 years. You know, you don't have that now because now you have an appointed and all appointed. Yes, the first selectman is still a member, but not the chairman, which makes a big difference. And that was obviously stripped away in, I think, 2000 and
Was it last time?
I think it was
right? Yeah, it was
2015,
10 years, yeah.
yeah, 16.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was when Trump was elected the first time.
But I will tell you, when you are chairing the Board of Finance, you are responsible for the Board of Ed budget as well as the town.
Which is
That's-
only
that's
2/3
the
of the
problem.
town's budget.
I know, and that's the big responsibility, and that's too easy to dismiss when you're not. I mean, I can see both sides of it. I was in the middle on that.
Yeah.
The whole Board of Finance was mixed. We weren't solid either way.
Yeah, no, it's a critical component of our town government, the Board of Finance, clearly. It's the last stop. It's not the last stop on the budget, but it's kind of the last stop since town council can't increase expenditures and not anything that hasn't been already brought before the Board of Finance in terms of expenditures.
So with that in mind, any opinion on the 2-year term? Is it right? Should it be more?
I like to think an executive branch, which the Board of Selectmen would be better served having a longer term. I mean, we kind of got it backwards a little bit in town where you have the town council, which is the legislative body, doing 4 years, albeit on a rotating basis, with, every 2 years. But I'm not going to die on that hill. I shouldn't use that phrase, but
Again, we're just as a commission getting,
Yeah.
for me, I'm just getting ideas, like to hear from people, see what,
Sure. I mean, the good thing about every 2 years is you delve into the electorate and you figure out if you're not already hearing about what are the main issues in town, you're certainly hearing it firsthand as you go out and you politic.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. It's not.
There are a number of towns that have had 1 term, 1 year even first selectman.
Yeah.
Which worries me. 2 years at the most, 1 term.
Yeah.
And we all remember all those. So, it doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah.
It's a commitment. It's a huge amount of time, energy. People get sick. We've had 2 recent cancer cases in our adjoining towns, young people
Yeah.
serving as first selectmen. So, maybe it doesn't hurt to keep it fresh. That's my only-
Listening to what Deanna was talking about, the charter versus ordinances, I think it's better, and I agree with her, it's better to be nimble. You can be
I think
nimble
so.
through the ordinance process and not burden yourself with a charter change that it's going to live with you until you get rid of it, change the charter again.
That's right.
And so in a perfect world, the charter is as vanilla as you can get. Obviously, you're going to have things like, town council, the years of service, term limits, things like that, absolutely should be in the charter. But beyond that, when it comes to commissions, things that are set up in town, ad hoc committees and such, I think the more you can do that
Yeah.
by ordinance, if necessary, and sometimes you don't need an ordinance necessarily. And I
Most
think
of
the
the
more
time.
you can do that and be nimble, I think the better off you are long-term.
And what about, similar to Ask Deanna, our section is actually the Board of Selectmen. What about, in your experience, think about that specific, about that role that you would do differently, the processes, the assignments that you had, what you have to do? Is there anything that you thought could be changed?
No, look, the town operates pretty darn well. We've always got issues percolating here and there, but, I believe in, Casey Stengel's aphorism that, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And so I think it's better off that we be careful and not institute change. The change which we had in 2016, the biggest change was stripping the first selectman from her role as chairman of the Board of Finance. I think it's worked out pretty well, but we've been lucky that we've had a good chairman of the Board of Finance since then. I think a very, very good chairman, and that may not always be the case.
That's right.
And so, you do have to game plan against the unthinkable or the unwantable.
Would you
but-
add a vice chairman to the Board of Finance?
I don't think it's a bad idea, Judy.
We had one arbitrarily, I should say.
Yeah.
When I was in, I
Yeah.
don't think that was constituted.
But-
And then after that,
Given the importance
stripped.
of the role, and if you really do want, I suppose the first selectman today is kind of a quasi vice chairman, almost a quasi chairman, which is not a bad thing, because I think the first selectman, I was actually, for the record, was opposed to stripping the first selectman with those powers. Tom O'Day famously said, he might deny that today, but he famously said, and I think he said to you, we had the most effective town government system in the state of Connecticut because you could do things quickly.
But that's what,
Subject to the whims of the electorate, but you could do it quickly.
and that's the rationale for the first selectman continuing as the chairman of the Board of Finance.
Right.
I can argue it either way.
Yeah.
I was not dead set on that. I wasn't in agreement that that had to be.
I mean, we got Saks, the Saks edition was done in probably record time. And that's because of the former government makeup, which was namely the first selectman being, running a board of finance. We were able to
Yeah.
push that. I say I was part of that quote unquote administration.
The high school was mine, the asbestos was mine. But I think the oversight on the Board of Ed, if there isn't someone willing to accept that responsibility and deal with the issues that arise, then who's going to do it if it's not the first selectman as the chair of Board of Finance? So I can argue for that any day.
Did you say that the Board of Ed or the Board of Finance? Where you
No,
go back to-
the Board of Ed issues
Yeah.
that are, well, at least it used to be, the oversight was on the Board of Finance and the first selectman was the responsibility. And that's, the exhaustive increase in the administrative and all those, that was all considerations that we dealt with.
As a former Board of Ed
Constantly.
chairman,
Yeah.
I can tell you, certainly when I was chairman, I looked at the Board of Finance, the town council, certainly the Board of Selectmen, all as voices in the room creating our Board of Ed budgets. I'm going back, 20 years or so, 16 years.
And we did.
The system worked.
Mhm.
The system worked. I mean, it's a strange, I won't get into the legalities of the relationship between any state, the state of Connecticut, any state in the union, but in Connecticut, there's a whole book about this, the relationship between a Board of Education, which is a creature of state law, to be clear.
Oh, yes.
Creature of state
definitely.
law.
Yeah.
And the town, which provides the money to operate the Board of Education. But suffice to say, it worked pretty well, when I was chairman.
Nick, I think you've worked with multiple first selectmen, so I'm just going to pose this question to you. Do you have any opinion on the town administrator model of government? We've heard some people asking questions about that.
Yeah, Wilton's gone to that, obviously, and, we've seen it elsewhere. I think it's funny because New England traditionally has been a very hands-on, historically has been very hands-on. The representative town meeting is an example of that. You've got the entire town falling out on a Sunday afternoon or Saturday afternoon and having this meeting. Essentially, acting as if you will, the legislative branch in town for one day in a calendar year. You can't get more voter-centric than that. I mean, people actually voting without a layer of government in between. And so, the trouble is when you pawn things off on a manager, it's too often somebody may not be watching, the story. It's too easy to say, well, it's the town manager's his fault, it's her fault. So I don't know about that. I mean, I think it's something you should certainly look at because of other towns are doing that. Does it depoliticize things? Yeah, it probably does to some extent. Maybe that's good in this environment. I don't know.
Well, we were surprised. Kevin, who was the solid advocate for that forever, has totally reversed his opinion. So given the, situation in Wilton, I totally agree with him. Before that, maybe.
I can't speak for Kevin and nor would he ever ask me
I
to
know,
speak for him,
I'm
but
just saying, for him to totally reverse his opinion, that was.
look, in order for you to do your job, you would probably not be doing your job if you didn't at least look at that.
Oh, we
I
have,
don't think
we
it's-
are. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I mean,
Yeah.
and it'd be interesting to see what you come up with. I'd like to see the data as to, how well it works in some of the towns, particularly in Connecticut.
Well, I mentioned it, and this was my experience, so it's only one person, but when we were under the FAA crunch and we were looking to 12 towns in Connecticut, all of which joined and contributed money to fight the suit. I reached out to Westchester and I got to the county supervisor once, but I went straight to the administrative officer. It was crazy. And all it was, in my view, was a wall to keep me from having to discuss this with the county supervisor. There wasn't any value add. It wasn't like the 12 towns, which were hard enough.
I think
in
that's a really
Connecticut.
good point, and
So
it just,
that's my own take.
it occurs to me that by going to a manager system of government, you might depoliticize things locally, but you also might depoliticize things, say at the state level, where you want your voice to be heard. An elected state representative, a senator, a governor, if you will, may not be as inclined to talk to a town manager as he or she would be to a first selectman or a mayor.
Not only that, but they feel defeated if they're not able to reach a first selectman. That's my experience as well from other towns.
You
I've
know,
heard
if
that.
when
input.
Deanna wants to get
Mhm.
the governor on the phone, she's going to get the governor on the phone. I mean,
Well, she may have 2 or 3 steps.
she
but
may have 2 or 3
she'll
steps,
get
but
there.
she'll get there
Yeah, she'll
because,
get there.
because she
Yeah,
represents 20,000 people
yeah.
as essentially the mayor of the town of New Canaan. And I think that's, you know, you don't want to lose that.
No, you want to always,
Important.
especially the DEP, that's the access you need more than any other one
Nick,
in
any-
general, but not always. Go ahead.
Any other comments, recommendations you'd make to us regarding the charter that you think could be helpful?
None, Todd.
All right, I
I
appreciate your time.
I appreciate your
Yeah.
time. This is, you know, every 10 years, you got to do it, and certainly appreciate you folks taking the time and doing a great job.
Well, your input's really appreciated,
luck.
so thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Got some good color. I'm into you. I would never have that color if I lived there.
Where was it?
Cancun, or no, it was,
Somewhere.
St.
good?
Croix.
Yeah,
St.
St.
Croix,
Croix,
yeah.
Steve?
Yeah, you're next.
How are you?
We're good. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Been to, I watched the videos of the prior meetings and I actually attended the last meeting. So you guys are doing a lot of work. So thank you for that. I brought notes,
Oh,
brought a
good. We
little
have
bit of
presentation.
prepared, a little bit of not. So wherever you guys want to go. So I feel like I'm full circle because as Kathleen knows, back in the day, 10 years ago, the way this worked was we made a list of people. We got on the phone. Will you do this? Will you do this CRC? Come on, let me do it. Will you do it? Will you do it? And we had to convince people to do it. So I know what it's like to try to recruit people to do this. So thank you very much for all the work. Karen, I know you a little bit, but you know, I'm 63-year resident of the town. So I born here, raised here. And it's a different perspective when you have a business here and, you know, you grew up here. So I wear different hats, but today I'll talk about being a selectman, I guess, is why you want my opinion. But the way I thought I'd start is just, I think, you know, last night P&Z touched on this a little bit, but if you could imagine a place with historically low taxes, premier public schools, education programming that is second to none, superior graduation rates that lead to entry into the top colleges and universities in the country, parks and open spaces that rival any in the state, well-maintained sidewalks, streets and bridges, well-funded and prioritized emergency services filled with both paid and volunteers, a downtown that bustles with activity and is so beautiful that it looks like a Hollywood movie set, a vigorously protected look and feel of architecture that balances the needs of conservation with reasonable and thoughtful development, and a place where you have annual community events and traditions that bring the community together, including concerts, parades, caroling, and fireworks. A place with an unprecedented level of philanthropic giving from its successful and extremely well-educated population, and a volunteer spirit that's omnipresent in the local culture. You would say to yourself, oh my God, where is this place? I would love to live there. I would do anything to live there. And guess what? We live there every day and we take it for granted.
We do.
If I didn't know better, I think you're running for office.
I mean, you know,
Yes.
but seriously, it is such an amazing place. And Nick just said, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's exactly my thought. And it's exactly why, as Kathleen knows, every time we bring this up, hey, let's open up the charter again. I'm like, what? You know, John Hetherington's in the back of my mind saying, hey, 169 towns in Connecticut. 168 of them want our charter. They admire us. They want to be us. They want to be New Canaan. And, you know, I hear a lot of talk about Richfield, Wilton, Westport, Stanford, Greenwich, all these places, Darien, they all do this. They all have elected this. They all have elected that. Well, guess what? I don't want to be those places. I want to be New Canaan. 06840 is where we live. That's who we want to be. And how did we get here? It wasn't a mistake. It's on the backs of everybody for decades before us, way back, way back. I mean, we were founded in 1801. The charter was put together in 1935. The people that wrote the charter knew what they were doing, just like the founding fathers of the US. They knew what they were doing. 3 branches of government. They knew exactly what they were doing. There's, you know, you look at the Board of Selectmen, the reasons we do what we do. You look at the town council, all the guidelines that they have to take care of. And the Board of Finance takes care of all the numbers. You know, I look at this and I say the checks and balances that we have in place are amazing. Why would we want to monkey around with that? I have no idea where the idea came from to all of a sudden say, hey, guess what? Everything's going well, but let's try electing a planning and zoning commission, or let's try a board of finance. Because once that genie comes out of the bottle, you can't change it for 10 years. It's a decade of living with that decision. And you already have 90 years of history telling you that what we have works. I have no idea why. And this is what I'm asking, and I mentioned this last night. There has to be reasons for me to go out into the town and say, hey, guess what? We're going to put this on the ballot. Here's the 10 things that the Board of Finance did that caused us to do this. Here are the top 10 reasons why we got this wrong. They didn't do this budget right. They made this bad decision. They didn't fund the Board of Ed on this thing. They cut this, they cut that. There is no story like that. There's no 10 mistakes that the Board of Finance has made in order to make this happen. Exactly the same thing with planning and zoning. What are the top 10 things that planning and zoning decided on that we would say, hey, we got to get rid of these folks? I mean, they are not doing a job. These towns I mentioned, you go to these towns and you drive down the street and they look nice, but then you come home and you drive down our streets and you say, wow, look at this place. It is absolutely phenomenal. And the reason is Laszlo Papp, 25 years. John Goodwin, 15 years. Dan Radman, 15 years. You know, you look at this list of current folks serving, there's 66 years right now on planning and zoning. If you add Sarah Carey at 4 years and Laszlo at 25, you got 100 years of experience that are weighing in, telling you, don't change anything. Why would you do that? So anyway, that's obviously where I am on the elected versus appointed. Some of the other things I wrote down, I don't have a lot to change, but the points made before about bylaws and ordinances, I happen to have some experience on that. Dick White handed me the book years ago before he passed away, and he said, kid, don't screw this up. And the time I was on the council, I served on that bylaws and ordinances committee. And the idea was we never wanted to put too many laws and be too restrictive, but we were always flexible. So during that time, we added the audit committee. We added the ethics board. We added a blight review committee. We added, I wrote them down. We added, a few different committees. And I think the flexibility of that is really important to be able to do that and not have to, we reinstated the Utilities Commission. And then also we added the Affordable Housing Committee. Now, a couple of those, the Audit Committee, for instance, and Kathleen and Kevin authored it. This was one of the first times any town had taken on an audit committee. This is why I say, why are we looking at other towns when we're the ones creating these ideas? Affordable Housing Committee. How many towns out of 169 have an Affordable Housing Committee? We're one of 2 or 3. We break the ground. We don't follow people. we're the ones setting the standard that other towns look to and say, wow, what are they doing? Wow, we got to do what they're doing because they're so successful. So following others is just not where I come from. But, and I understand you always want to look in the mirror. And Kathleen is always in the back of my head because she said this so many times when we were on town council. It doesn't hurt to look. It doesn't hurt to try to improve on things. I get that. But I also think that by putting some of this stuff on a ballot, you are opening yourself to folks who are not as connected, that don't understand it. And I think Deanna touched on this earlier. And I'm not saying that they don't know what's going on in town, but there's a certain level of folks who know what's going on. And then there's the next level and the next level. And, you know, it's very difficult to put that kind of charge to the electorate and say, hey, you know, we want you to decide on this really important decision. And if they're not fully educated in terms of what it really means, they're going to make a bad decision. So that's why I'd like to say, well, let's not even get to the point where we're putting this on the ballot, but you know, that's up to you guys to decide that. There are other things I could talk about. You know, I think one of the issues we have in town is, and Judy, you touched on it the other night, was we have a lack of participation in town, and we have a disconnect. You know, we used to have meetings at the old town hall where you would have, I specifically remember a row in the back of town hall, packed to the gills, standing room only, and 4 or 5 women knitting while they were in town hall. Now, that does date me, and nobody knits anymore at town hall, but they were at the meetings. They listened, they came, and they were
And
participating.
they went for 2 hours. I
Yes,
mean,
they did.
Public hearings are important on every issue. If you don't do that, you alienate sections, our tribes, our people, our agendas. And
And
that
we-
was, I think that's critical. But of course, we didn't have Zoom and we didn't have all we have now. Nobody was on a screen. So people were engaged.
They
They were
were.
very engaged.
Well, and listen, at that time, back in the day, when I grew up here, the New Canaan Advertiser employed enough people. They had a building at 42 VD Street. They had a full staff of people every day going around and reporting, going to meetings, and
They sure did.
you know, everybody looked to that advertiser. It was the heart and soul of the town. And when that went away, so did a lot of the soul of what's going on. Now, thank God, and I wrote this down, he's in the room, and I actually wrote this down, so I'm not saying this because it's in the room, but there's a guy who picked up that mantle,
Mhm.
Mike Dinan. And if it wasn't for the New Canaanite, for a while there would be no central location for this town to go to for any information other than the town website. And when you look at that, it's actually pretty scary. And I actually pulled out, this is another scary number for me when I realized this. Back in 2020, March 24th, 2020, YouTube, we started to put our meetings online. And there are 1,391 videos of meetings that are currently available on YouTube. There are only 63,118 views out of 1,391 videos as of today. This is current data. That means that 45.38 people watched those meetings on average.
Over what period of time?
5 years.
Okay.
Wow. Low number.
Yeah. And
That was not the case when I was
No.
in. My God, you
no,
were just.
so I mean,
overwhelmed.
and at least we know that, you know, Mike's website is a place to go to get information. The town website, Deanna's done a great job with a newsletter. We now have the Sentinel up and running. So we do have a paper now, but it's the amount of the lack of time that people have now and the distraction from social media and all the other things going on in the world, the kids' sports, the scheduling, you know, we're all overscheduled. We're after our own health. We're after our own mental wellness. There's just not the bandwidth anymore to sit and knit at a meeting anymore. You're just not going to do it.
No.
And it's a big problem. It's a problem that we're facing because, you know, when Judy's gone and Kathleen's gone and I'm gone and the history is gone of what's gone on, you're leaving it, and there hopefully we'll have another class behind us. But it is scary actually to think about. Time does go on and things do change, but I don't know. I'm rambling a bit about that, so I apologize. The other thing I had on my list that's a little outdated along those lines is there's a big thing in the charter about news racks. I'd like to see us do something about that. I don't think there should be news racks. We should probably, knock that out if we can while we have it open. What else? I don't know. Yeah, I've rambled for too long now. So do you guys have questions for me? I have more, but I'll pause for a minute.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
So we've heard similar from most officials and ex-officials to not make a lot of changes. But one area that a couple of officials have wanted to change is the town clerk and the treasurer, which you heard. What is your thought on that?
So, I think Nick hit it on the head. They're both extremely important positions. I wouldn't do away with them. How we handle them is a whole nother issue. Separating the person from the role is always important. I've actually had to face the pay question a bunch of times serving, in the positions I've served with over the years. And it's always, you have to take the person away from the job. You can't put that person in and say, hey, how much is this person worth? I will say, though, that our town clerk has given her life to this town. And it's a very unique situation we have right now. So if we were to change it, I would like to have an extraordinarily soft landing if we were ever to change that position for somebody who has dedicated her entire life to this town. And she's done so much for this town that you have to say, let's make sure that it plays out. If she wants to retire at a certain point, at that point, let's make the change. Let's not do it, and obviously she's got to run for office and get through all that, but that's a really tough one.
She's on a 4-year cycle, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's a really tough one for me to say, hey, as of today, we vote on this charter, as of today, we're changing this whole thing. So, in the treasurer, we have changed that. We put a salary on it. Don Hersom for years was a sort of a, he had the signature that everybody wanted. He had the name everybody wanted. When he signed a check, that meant it was good. It represented this town. It represented what the extraordinary history of the town. But that all changed, when we decided that the treasurer's role should be a more active role. He was not active. And at the end of the run, I think we realized that the treasurer should take a more active role and is more involved in the day-to-day. And, I can't speak for Anne and, the relationship she has with the current situation. If change is needed, we usually get it done. I mean, whether it's through elections or whether it's through rewriting things, if there's truly a need to change things, generally we get it done. So that's a long-winded answer to.
How would you structure it if it was changed, if it was appointed?
Well, if it was appointed, as we've mentioned, as some of us have mentioned, if you went to an appointed town clerk, you could open it up to not just residents, because right now you're locked into a resident, and that definitely limits the pool. I mean, how many people are trained and have the ability to fill that role?
For which? Town
For
clerk?
town
or
clerk. For
Oh.
town clerk, yeah. So
That's different, yeah.
you'd be able to open it up and get a specific person that's trained and has the background for a clerk's job.
Yeah.
Now that's great, but will they understand? It'll take a while for them to get up to speed because they don't know the town that well. So that's another issue about not having a resident. They don't have that connection. But
So a town clerk would be a full-time paid position like it is now. Maybe
Yeah,
a
but-
treasurer would be somebody appointed in your mind
well,
to work with in conjunction with the CFO and Board of Finance.
Well, the treasurer's role, if you did expand the treasurer's role, you would have to, you'd have to make it a full-time position but I don't know that it merits that.
I was gonna say, do you
It
think it
doesn't-
warrants it? Yeah.
No,
No,
it
I don't
doesn't
think so.
merit it. It doesn't, we have a CFO.
That's right.
That's all we need. The position we've created is is a little bit, it's in between things. It's like, it's not all the way there. It's sort of paid by, you know, the amount of time involved. There's differing opinions. I know, you know, the current treasurer spends some time and, you know, on certain things. And, you know, you want to make sure that that time is compensated and compensated well. I mean, and I think we've done that. So that's a difficult one for me. I could go either way on that.
5 selectmen, 3 selectmen,
3 selectmen is more than
simple,
enough.
yeah.
I mean, you know, I had observed this role for years. I mean, I actually had the pleasure of working under Dick Bond, under Judy,
Yeah.
Jeb, Rob, Kevin, and now Deanna, and I've worked for all of them. And as I walk up those stairs, I get older and older, like, oh my God. Holy cow.
Don't we all?
So, but it's been a pleasure. And now that I'm in this role, it's a different perspective. I mean, having been on town council for so long, I knew what the Board of Selectmen did, but I didn't know exactly what they did. And to me, I feel like I'm a little bit more on an island in some ways because I don't have that big town council that I'm getting dumped all the information from all over town into. But on the other hand, I get that anyway because I'm out in town all the time. So people talk to me about different issues as it is. So I like the Board of Selectmen role, and I think 3 is more than enough. It really is more than enough.
All right.
And, you know, I feel like we can talk. When we do need to talk officially, we have to get in the room together and we don't talk about anything we shouldn't talk about behind the scenes. And I think we have a very good rapport between the 3 of us. And you have somebody that was a board of finance person, a town council, and a board of ed. And in the history of New Canaan, having those 3 different people on this Board of Selectmen has been an amazing, you know, collection of experience. So I'm really happy about that. And I think it's worked well. So.
Yeah, again, today works great. I'm looking
Right,
at the,
down
so, you know, we're very
But-
fortunate right now that the 3 of you have such a collegial, you know, relationship, right? So
if you added 5 and, you know, it would complicate things because there's a much quicker, you can move quickly, and government is hard to move things quickly. With 3, it's clean. You talk about it and you go. Imagine meetings. We had a meeting, a budget meeting that we got in at 8:30 and we got out at 1:30. So it was a 5-hour meeting on Tuesday. If you add 2 more people to that, you might as well say you're going to be there all day because we all ask questions and we all have opinions, and it's just, you don't want to make it too cumbersome. So, you know, that's my opinion.
I'm not advocating either. I'm just
No.
getting
Yeah.
opinions. Any other questions?
Just the one, just to be consistent, police commissioner in the reporting structure for the police commissioner. You have any thoughts on that?
I actually was like Judy. I didn't realize I knew that the police and fire
Aren't we terrible?
were, you know, reported to, I always thought they reported to the Board of Selectmen, but primarily the first selectman was in contact with, you know, the fire and police and had final authority. I think we should look at that. I
do too.
believe we should take a look at the way that works. And I'm not advocating changing it until we look at it closer. I want to see, you know, anytime you change something, there's always, you know, a fallout, and, you know, we need to really study that if we're going to change it. But I'm happy to take a look at that and.
It was a much closer relationship.
Yeah.
All the union negotiations. I mean, we should have Sandy Redden come in because he'll remember this well, because we
Yeah.
went through a lot of hiccups with the fire commission. But that was huge. Both sets of contracts at the time were just huge. And now everything's outsourced and nobody knows, and it's your turf or their turf. I think it needs more oversight. I think it needs more involvement.
I think so. And
I do too.
I think, you know, but I don't want to overload that first selectman's office because I look
No,
at.
I don't either, but
I
it's
mean,
time.
I'm
Yeah.
close to the first selectman's office now, closer than I've ever been. And I can't believe how much time this woman puts into going to every single meeting and being involved in everything in town. It makes my head spin when she tells me what she does in a day. I mean, I can't believe she's doing everything she's doing.
And
So,
it's more than you knew you were going to do before you were in. Much more.
yeah.
Well, on that note, what do you think about a town administrator role
So, and that's,
or a deputy?
Well, I still believe in the system and the government that we have. We've been so lucky to have, you go back to Lou Moreno and Dick Bond and Judy and all those people that have run the town. Having an extra person that's just a sort of a fixture there that has so much power that, they sort of have oversight. I don't like that. I think the people need to roll the first selectman in like we've done. They have that 5.5 years. Nick said, you've got 5.5 years if you want it. But sooner or later, you're out. No one's lasted more than 6 years because there's some really tough decisions that get made. And, everybody's not going to be happy.
Is that true? Nobody's made it more than 6 years?
Well,
You
in the modern
alienate
era.
people. It
In the
depends.
modern era.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Modern
well,
era.
yeah,
So.
Lou Marino was as long as I can remember. So yeah, starting after him.
Right.
And-
grandfather was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we
that's right.
probably should have asked Deanna this, but over the years that you've been in this role, do you feel like the first selectman role has gotten a lot more complex and harder to do all of it?
I mean, I think legally everything has gotten harder. That's the problem. I
That's
mean,
the
you can't
issue.
you can't do
Yeah.
anything without worrying about who's going to sue you for what. I mean, what are the legal implications? You look at our bills from our attorney. I mean, it's crazy what we spend in legal bills, and it has gotten more complicated, and it makes. You can't just, I always think back to Dick Bond. Dick Bond was the first selectman before social media, before the internet. He was able to make decisions in town, basically a maverick who made decisions. Most of them were good decisions, but he didn't have to answer
To anyone.
to anyone. I mean, and that wasn't the way to do things. We needed a much more check and balance government, which is why we are where we are now, is because back then it was the wild, wild west. And, now it's a much more check and balance system. So
And just a way to solve for the complexity, because eventually maybe it'll be too complex for one person to handle it all. Does the first selectman right now, and you might not know this, but Deanna probably does, you probably know it, have the authority to hire someone without a charter change? Like
to hire someone, meaning like
a deputy, an extra assistant, or a specific,
no, because the budget.
You have to-
the budget cycle. She could bring it.
you could put it in the
forward.
budget. It doesn't have to be in the charter.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
right.
just curious.
And the charter is like we said earlier, is the Constitution, but the bylaws and ordinances give us the flexibility to write things. Like we wrote a plastic bag ordinance that, when I was on town council, and never thought for a minute that anybody would be paying attention to this, but that was a pretty heavily attended and debated issue back in the day. And just things like that, people, if they care, they will weigh in, but we just don't hit that needle very often. I mean, it's, I think the leaf blower ordinance.
I think the leaf blower, that's the new one,
huge.
yeah.
That's the new hot
Yeah,
button.
That
And-
is a hot button.
And, when I go back to the library and, one of the reasons that this elected P and Z has really caused me angst is I followed that library from birth concept in 2019, actually it goes back to 2012, but 2019 to when we cut the ribbon, basically. And during that time, which is about 4 years, it was the most contested and opinionated move that this town has made in decades. That 1913 library, the modern library, how's it all going to work? How are we ever going to get through this? And P&Z, the library set a record for numbers of meetings and numbers of hearings during that time. And my only thought with this elected P&Z would be, just imagine for a moment, if you had that going on and you had an election for planning and zoning seats during a very hot contested time like that. Just imagine what the landscape would look like. I mean, it would be Armageddon.
And I wonder if people who had expressed an opinion about it would have to recuse themselves anyway, based on the things we heard last night about the laws for it. So
Well, yeah, I mean, I remember hearing about all the attorneys that were on all these other towns that have, there's planning and zoning, but there's 8 attorneys and 2 other people. Is that what we want? Do we want a bunch of attorneys?
You don't want attorneys.
No offense.
No,
So-
they were running three. I've got the survey. We're running three, which is more than I thought.
Yeah.
On a
No,
commission.
somebody had made a point the other day that I think Darien had, what, 7 or 8 attorneys
Right.
on it, and,
That's not a good thing. You need more,
yeah, you need more balance.
well-balanced and broader. Yeah. I should have asked all of you, well, how do you feel about adding, well, especially the affordable housing? You think that should stay as a committee or should be in the charter, or that's got a long life? So
It does have a
just
long life.
wonder, yeah.
And it's an issue that's not going to go away for a long
Forever.
time. So last time we did this, we opted to put these committees in the charter. But as you think about it, it doesn't give you the flexibility to, open and close them as much as if they were out. So I don't know. I mean, I think the Affordable Housing Committee is here to stay and it will be here to stay. Does it need to be in the charter? If we're going to put them all in the charter, they should be. But if we're not, then.
Well, some of them though will go in and out. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a moment in time, but that one is,
Well, did we put
perceived to
the
be.
audit committee in, right? Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's in permanently, which is something that we all agreed that. No, but it's, the reason that was born is because the town council said to each other, the 12 at the time, we all said, hey, we don't have the accounting experience that is required to do this. And this is a very time consuming thing to do. And that's one of the reasons why the audit committee was created.
But it sounds like your philosophy is less is more as far as inclusion into the charter,
inclusion in the
right?
charter, as opposed
You're
to.
much,
can see
it's
that.
much more flexible.
Gives you more flexibility. Yep.
You think the audit committee should be, well,
It's-
you think it should be expanded and you think it should be elected? Or
Uh,
you think it's just right, or?
No, I don't think the audit committee should be elected. I go back to the Mike Holland philosophy that we had back in the day. Mike Holland was one of the
My board of
rock
finance, yeah.
rock star
Yeah.
board of finance people that we could ever have in this town. And people always said to me, can you imagine Mike Holland standing at the train station with a vote for me pin? And the answer was, there's no way. I mean, the quality of people that we've gotten to fill these roles based on not having to run for office, it's legendary who we've had in some of these roles.
We've had some,
We've had, and the audit
Remarkable.
committee is a good example. The CEOs we have from these top accounting firms, are these guys going to go out and start campaigning for office? You're
but
not gonna-
but they probably wouldn't. It would be like other smaller ones where the DTC or the RTC puts
Yeah,
the name on.
but that's
this.
different
It's
than
not
that's different
contentious.
than
That's
elected.
different.
A true election
right.
is when you have an election that's
contested,
contested election where
yeah.
you actually have to campaign.
That's asking a lot.
And it's
Yeah.
brutal. I mean, it's not.
We all know.
It is not. It is not a fun time.
We all know, yeah.
Sorry.
I'm just
Yep.
sensitive to your
Yep, Amy,
time,
Amy's
Betsy.
up next.
Steve, thank you.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Appreciate your 63 years in
And-
the
and-
game.
and what-
Yeah.
One of the things I just want to say too is, first of all, thank you, but also if you need anything, please
Yeah.
reach out. I mean, if you
Yeah,
have
well,
additional
we're-
questions. I don't think let me just make sure.
Could you give us your writings or?
I
do you-
will.
Yeah,
We'd
add
love-
that
we'd
to
love
our,
have that for the file. That'd be great.
Oh, one of the things that Krista mentioned last night was good too about, see if the P and Z could expand their community engagement better, which I thought was a great idea.
Yeah, we think that's a great idea too. Right.
Yeah.
Communication's really important.
Yep.
We have to figure out how to get more of it out there.
All right, I think that's it. If I ever think of anything else, I'll wait.
All right.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know you are, yeah.
Okay.
Who's on now?
Oh, have fun.
So now they're going through just a review of what they've already gone through. and making decisions.
Oh, all right, yeah, we haven't had that, yeah.
What can you do, sisters?
Amy, you're up.
Is it
Hello,
one?
Oh, one of our.
You've had a lot of spoilers about what we're
That's
gonna
okay.
have.
That's all right. And I got behind Joe cheerleader. So
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
tough act to follow.
Welcome,
try.
Amy. It's your
Hello.
turn and you now know the ritual and so you can start wherever you want.
okay. Like you guys, I've been involved in town for a long time, right?
Long time.
And I have this municipal finance background. And when I first joined the Board of Finance, and I was kind of tapped to do that because I had the municipal finance background, and I'm covering municipalities all over the state. I was responsible for all the ones in the states. And if I got into the Board of Finance, and I like the appointed role because you came as an alternate, you kind of learned the ropes and moved up. But the observation that I gave to people, I was at Morgan Chase at the time, it's like, you look at ratings, and I can give you the statistics on rating and why something is rated the way it is. But what a town like New Canaan has, because of its resources, a lot of people have skill set, we are allowed to have exceptional governance. And you do not get exceptional governance in many small towns. You know, it might not be their fault. You may not have the resources. I mean, think about people here, have long careers, have some free time, incredible expertise, and they say, I'm going to help out in the town. And so my general comment, and I say to people all the time, not many people really understand how town works, which is kind of good because it means it's not broken, right? So people have the ability to come here, move here, feel comfortable the school is going to be great, see that the amenities are good, their taxes are decent. They kind of don't have to dig down and get that involved because it's working. Which sounds a little counterintuitive, but you know, all of us, you know, we had little kids. I mean, I wasn't particularly involved when I had little kids, but I just assumed the schools would work and the parks would be there, and they were. And then as you know, people get more free time, they can move up and do this type of work. So I'm in a bit of the camp of if it's working, you don't need to fix it, which doesn't mean you don't review. So I completely
but you
agree with the
have to,
process
yeah.
here. But you know, as Steve was saying, and I would take it more from my, you know, Board of Finance background and the selectmen. Yeah, we have hiccups, okay, and we have a little bit of contention, but in general, we are well run. We are professionally run. People are courteous to each other, and what do we have? Exceptional finances. Exceptional finances. You know, so well run. From the board, being on the Board of Finance, and the group of people and the short and long-term planning, we're incredible stewards of our physical plant, and we prepare for the future, and we take on challenges as they go forward, and we balance judiciously between the wants and the needs. And we make sure that we are dealing with it over time, which allows us to have this incredible town, which allows us to fund a school system that is the envy of almost every school system, that we have incredible services for every demographic group. It's really kind of crazy. You know, you kind of live here a long time, and, you know, when your kids are little, you see the little kid stuff. And, you know, recently, you know, I had my mother was elderly, and then I tried to help out with the Medicare training. I didn't know Latham Center was like, you know, Grand Central Station during the day. I mean, we hit every group, and we tried to equitably provide services to everybody. So, you know, we have a system that works really well. I think we have, you know, some parties that are elected and some that aren't. I know this is the big topic this time. And I was with Mike Hobbs earlier today, who was on not the last charter committee, but two of them before. He goes, oh yeah, it's the elected versus appointed thing again. You know, so this is a perennial question. And I know a lot of people have tapped on it, but I could not have been a Board of Finance when I was working in municipal finance, period. Most of the people I worked with could not be. No one that I knew on the Board of Finance got in because they had any ulterior motive of objective, except to be helpful. Like other people did it before, we're going to help. And you had a great cross-section of people, and it was quite non-political. I mean,
And just to clarify, you mean because somebody mentioned this yesterday, your employer wouldn't allow.
You
it.
wouldn't,
Yeah.
that's
yeah,
right.
I would have had to jump through so many hoops. It would not have been.
Yeah.
And the time associated with it too, right? Just
Yeah.
running, you know.
Well, it's taken out of your regular, even when you were remote during COVID, it was still time out of your working day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sure it is.
And, you
The
know,
restriction was against running for office. I'm assuming.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Restricted. I actually had to quit my job to run for office.
We had this conversation. It
And
was
Judy and I were- yeah,
exhausted. It was the JP Morgan. It's the way it's structured,
Yeah.
you know?
And,
Yeah,
and
for
on the
good
one hand, they
reasons,
want for
even
good
no
involved. Yeah.
conflict reason,
Right.
yeah.
So, you know, and then you think of the folks that work on P&Z, right? And what I really like about the process we have, and like nothing's perfect, right? But the appointment process we have, it is pretty thoroughly vetted for people's skill sets, right? So, you know, if you're coming up from whatever political party, you go through that. People are chatting with you. I would tell the people in the DCC, they're a little brutal on people. I'm like, could you lighten up a little bit? But really, like, what are qualifications and stuff? And then, it's put forth, by the selectmen. But, every single person that comes up, I talk to. And we make sure that they talk to the chairs and that they know what they're getting into. Because you don't necessarily know what you're getting into before you're into this. So, and Dan Rabin talked about this, and I think Todd talked about it. You do try to balance your skill set, So again, when we were on Board of Finance, we had Tom Schulte, a brilliant lawyer, phenomenal.
Yeah.
He's rolled off. A lawyer would be good. You can't manage that through an electoral process, in terms of anybody can raise their hand to do it, whether you have a skill set or not.
But the DTC and the RTC, in fairness, could look for a trained lawyer,
When they do,
but not 4 of them, and not 4 contractors, and not 3 this or 4. That gets so much harder.
you mean
One
to-
is enough.
you mean when you're running for something?
No, when you're looking for somebody to run for an election,
Yes,
you can
it's
focus
difficult.
on and find that person.
And running
It's
is,
when you have a number, it's hard.
it's a very
really
hard process. It asks a lot of people, from a lot of people whose sole objective is just to help out.
Yeah, Amy?
Yeah.
I heard Todd and Dan both say that their committees are really apolitical,
Mhm.
as far as their decision-making. And I heard them both say, when they gave the breakdown, it was almost 50-50, 60-40 Republican, Democrat. Is that intentional, or is it just come out that way accidentally because of skill set?
I think it's actually been, to be honest, it's always been X% of Republicans and the balance.
It's
are-
a state law.
Is it
Yeah,
on the
state-
committees?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
state law
Okay.
requirement. We don't have to be so weighted to one party or another, but, there is the reality that people don't give up a political party
All right,
position.
so even though they're apolitical, as far as they're concerned, they still balance
There
the
is.
politics of who sits on those committees.
Yeah, and I would say one thing that I think could be an opportunity for us, and I actually would like, I would love that there were no parties for political elections. I mean, I think it's irrelevant, but I'm not gonna win
You're
that
not,
fight.
you can't win that one.
Yeah,
I
not gonna
know.
win that one.
Yeah.
But there are rules at the state in terms of what level representation you have to have by a non-majority party, depending on how size the board. And I meant to bring it with me, but we don't have to adhere to that. Like, if it's a board of 5, you only have to have 1 non-majority position. And that to me sounds odd. I would much like it more to be,
You're saying it's an at least, not a strict, you're saying it's at least this many.
yeah, at least. It
So
doesn't
by law,
have to be,
by
but
law.
you could have 4.
But
of
that's not
5
in a
in
charter,
one
that's a
party.
state law.
It's a state,
Yeah.
but you can, I looked at it, your charter can override
Mhm.
those. So
Yeah.
you could set a minimum in the charter.
Does it need to be included in the charter, or is it best left?
I mean, you can do a
I don't
policy,
know. I
anything
mean, I
you
have
want,
to
but I
think
think
about
I think
that.
it would be something, what I read is that the charter would have to specifically,
Is that right?
could
Okay.
do it.
But
Now,
not,
Amy,
well, by the way, you don't have to have the maximum representation from one party. That is optional. It's just, you cannot have too low a threshold for the non-majority party.
but notwithstanding the minimum, we're well over that as far as these committees. It sounds like, planning and zoning and finance, right?
I think it's historically has been that it's maxed out for whatever the majority party is defined, which is odd now, because I think it maybe made sense a while ago when people were very affiliated to 1 or 2 parties, but
Mm.
our biggest party is unaffiliated.
Now.
And that's
yeah.
another issue if you're trying to go.
It's not a
election.
party, which
Yeah,
is the
If you're
problem.
trying to go to election, how is that group ever going to have a voice? Now, I think there's been a decent amount of progress with appointing unaffiliated to boards and commissions, which I think is positive. You have 2 unaffiliated on this, right?
Yeah.
So,
And that's not, that is only recently that the number of unaffiliated passed the number of Republicans
couple years ago.
in town. And I probably should have asked. So
Yeah,
you
a
guys
couple
feel free to
years ago.
chime in back there.
No, it's
Um,
it's at least 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
But the margin keeps,
Yeah.
It keeps
it's a
fighting.
toxic political environment nationally. So I think people are just like,
Yeah.
It's also-
Has there been any, oh, I'm sorry.
No, but it is a younger generation that doesn't want party
Yep.
affiliation on their resume, on their blank space, on their anything. And so that's automatically gendering that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. I
Yeah.
mean, these kids, yeah, I totally get
Yeah,
that.
but we don't want to miss the talent of that group.
I was
Right.
gonna
And
say,
Yeah,
we
and
don't
that's
want to
the
miss the
problem.
talent,
That's
and there's
the
a
issue.
heck of a lot of talent there.
Is
And-
there,
and-
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Is there a potential to put something in the charter in your mind that would take into account unaffiliated voters?
I would have to think about that.
I have thought about it. I
I'm
can't find
gonna
where it
lean
goes.
with Steve's comments, like,
Yeah.
do your flexibility maybe through ordinances or stated policies, or, you know, just.
We
a-
need a legal opinion on
Yeah.
that. I
I
don't have
can't-
the
I can't
answer
speak to
either.
that.
Yeah.
I can't speak to that, but, you know, look, I think it's,
Again, this is just sort of fact finding, just getting opinions.
no, but I was thinking about
Yeah.
when people talk about elections and, like, you know, people be informed, it is really hard to stay informed. It's just hard to stay informed. There's a million committees and stuff going on. And I mean, how many of us around election time have people come up to you and said, I don't know any of the people, who do you think I should vote for?
Oh, constant.
All the time, right? And so, as an example, just here, so you guys are appointed, not everyone appointed here knew who I was or Steve Carl. And we have both run for office and been around town government a long time. I don't say that as a criticism because I didn't know everybody sitting here. It's a small town, but it's not that small, right? And the concept, and I think someone asked this, Karen, I think you might have asked this yesterday, of Sarah, like, how could you discern of people running for the Board of Finance or P&Z, you know, in your town? I mean, how the heck would you do it? Because even when people run elections, everyone's so careful with words. You don't necessarily know what they're saying. But I do think one of the big risks of that, of getting elections, is that you could have big money behind a single issue. And you could flood the campaign. There's no limit on what you could spend. You could flood the airways. You could get people like right behind you, and you could get someone in planning and zoning who has a very different vision of what development should be. You know, I don't think your electorate necessarily would know. I think you can be in a bad position with that. So that,
And you rectify that how?
what you keep a good chunk of our government is appointed. And I do think, and it's a pretty long track record, not many people who are appointed, would you go, man, they really were in that camp 100%. I mean, they generally do their job and stay in their lane and produce decent government for
I
us.
think we've had any issues possibly besides the view around long enough that has mobilized that? I mean, that by now, that certainly would be reflected on P&Z or town council or anywhere else. It's been long enough. That's probably the hottest one that I know that went through P&Z.
That was the
people are
library was
just
pretty hot.
hot. Well, that was too.
That was
but
pretty hot. And then
Again, that's only been a couple of years.
Yeah.
So
you're all, you know, I think Radman said it, Dan Radman said
Yeah.
it well the
Yeah.
other day, and John as well. There's always going to be a development that somebody doesn't like. And, you know, I think the fundamental difference with developers is that they want to develop, they want more. I think many people want to keep the town, and you know, how do you balance it all, right? So people have different objectives. And also, if you've been here a long time, your view may be different than people earlier. I think, you know, like someone might go, oh my God, we had that beautiful park, they have now this housing. Somebody may be moving and going, oh my God, I can't believe I live at this house in this beautiful town. It's just where you sit,
I know.
which leads me into term limits. If there were term limits, I would make them extremely long. I would make them 20 years. But I think after 20 years, I mean, we do have sometimes people hanging out. I think you need to make room for the next generation because it is their town as well.
On the same commission?
I mean, on the boards and commissions.
Yeah, board, like the
Oh,
20
yeah.
years, and then you can roll off for a term and come back in. But you know, I think there is.
I know, but it probably should have rolled off and come back in earlier than 20 years. If
Pick your
you're in
number.
the same spot 20 years.
Yeah, that's a long time to do
That's
something.
you get a little jaded.
You get
I
a little
mean,
stale.
Yeah, oh, stale.
Yeah.
But
And
jaded.
you know, new eyes give fresh ideas. You know, not everything old is great. Not everything new is great. I mean, there's
Right,
like,
it's
and
a balance.
yeah, years ago, they, when I was doing the study we did on the buildings, and I think, you know, Mike sponsored a public building forum, and this is the first time I met some of the people who were on, like historical buildings. Oh, how are you? You know, where do you live? Oh, I live in one of the mid-century moderns. And I said, well, that's kind of cool, but you know, maybe if you were in charge, those mid-century moderns would not have been built. You know, so it's all where you sit, like things have to be a little flexible, right? You know, no one, if you're preserving something, you gotta be careful what you're preserving because it rolls a lot of obligations to the town and expenses and some are very worthy of it. But you could also be blocking the next new amazing building. Yeah, so it's just, it's complicated.
I should have asked all of you, but I'll ask you and the rest of you can chime in. Would you add a preservation commission or would you extend the historic district, which is a possibility, without adding another commission?
I think it's hard,
perhaps-
you know, Judy, it's hard to fill these commissions, just
That's
straight
my
up.
point.
Super
But-
hard.
But certainly from Elm to Elm Street to Maine, to the train station, that would be the preservation district. I think they're after, are the people that are behind this.
Yeah,
That could be expanded from certainly.
I gotta
the
think about that, because,
historic.
perhaps, another thing is from running towns and cities, right? Like if you're a developed town, okay, and sometimes the only way to do anything is go up. I mean, where else are you gonna do anything? So, would the preservation restrict you from going another story
Well,
up?
beyond that extra story is becoming a hot issue.
I know, but
So
those are-
maybe that's well worth looking at ahead of time.
Yeah, but so, maybe, I do things, I meant to look at this and I kind of ran out of time. I believe the sign ordinance is within P and Z. I mean, maybe
That
some
is
of the things we
always.
could pay attention, like, we do have rules and it seems like, you want businesses to do what they want to do, but, I think there are some that have like big neon signs that we're not supposed to have. I would like, we do have some things on the book, maybe we should look at them before we start adding other things.
But preservation is more about containment than it is about, a sign or, because you've got the downtown Elm Street, which I think is close to perfect. And certainly the theater is now the focal point.
Mhm.
Do we want to keep that within a preservation or perhaps an expansion of the historic district? Because that's the only places you'd put it. You've got this whole new group wanting preservation. We haven't heard from them yet, but I don't know where else they're thinking of besides. Well, no, but planning and zoning, nobody thinks that's where it belongs so far.
With
We'll
eight thirty
see.
G, and 8002, they really are taking a look at that because it's something they need to take a look at. So I do think that you could have a subcommittee, sorry.
Do you think it should be a subcommittee under P and Z or?
I mean, it could be in concert with the Historic District Commission. I mean,
I
you
wouldn't
could,
set up a new commission.
I don't think
So
you-
right now, the Historic District Commission works in conjunction with P and Z on these things. There's got to be a certificate of need that goes through Historic Commission, then it goes after that, if it's approved,
Mhm.
it goes to P and Z. So
Yeah.
there is a way of dealing with it. And then the courts oversee what P and Z would do from Historic Commission. So
Yeah.
there is a line of command right now to.
But
keep things
that's
in check.
any one.
Correct. It's any one
But I'm
issue.
talking about expanding the street or the area or
Wait,
the
but I would say,
downtown.
I wouldn't, again, I'd probably keep the charter. You may do that outside the charter.
You think it belongs outside of the charter because you've heard people come in wanting it in the charter.
Yeah, I guess,
Two people
that's-
so far
yeah, that's not my
strongly.
biggest, I could,
Yeah.
personally, I couldn't focus on that. I mean, the charter things and I'm glad you guys brought this up because this has worried me for
I
a
just
while.
thought I should have asked the others.
Yeah, this has worried me. And the beautiful thing about New England government is it's about people being involved in doing it. I do worry with the structure of the police commission and fire commission.
Mhm.
That's three people with a heck of a lot of responsibility.
Yeah. I
Police,
am
fire,
too.
and
I
what's the
just
third?
police and fire.
Police and fire,
Yeah. But and like with the recent appointee that, we put on, again, we talked to everyone and I had an long discussion. I said, your job is to oversee these guys and to make sure they have what they need. It's like people have to realize what their job is on these commissions. And it's asking a lot to find three people. That's a big responsibility on that. Okay, so, and again, the fact that there's no really dotted line of communication or chain of
Apparently
command.
not.
No, but I mean it as a risk for the people doing it, for,
Mhm.
and look, if something blows up in any of that, okay, it's not It may not be the selectman's fault, but you know where it's gonna end, right?
Can I
You know,
ask something, because I'm not that familiar with it. I know we have a commission that, for the police and for the fire department, that would elect the chief of police, for instance, right? That commission, the people that sit on the police commission that would nominate the police commissioner, they come from where recommendations from
They
the
get
committees?
appointed,
Okay,
they get appointed.
and once they're appointed, then they have total autonomy on what
Yeah.
they do, and there's no check and balance on that right now.
And I'm not,
I've been through two of
Yeah.
these, two
Wow.
outplacements and two chiefs.
Yeah.
And that was hugely backed by the union. You don't end up there, you start there. Otherwise, what does it matter who appoints them?
oh, you
You've
mean
got to
you
have
need,
the
you need
support.
support, yeah, which
Yeah.
is,
I'm
which is
sorry,
good.
Steve wanted to,
Please.
can you come up can you just come up to,
Yeah, that's right.
want to make sure this is on,
Thank
because
you.
this is
Yeah,
important issue.
Good point.
Well, the one thing that we've heard recently in our seats, all three of us have heard that, well, why did you guys approve stop signs on Weed and Elm? Like, how did you come to that decision? Because everybody looks to us as like, wow, that's a major thing. Like, how did you decide to do that? Well, we didn't decide. We didn't even weigh in on it. And those are the kinds of decisions that, maybe we should bring to the broader town audience, because that right now it's structured, the police commission is responsible for all on-street decision making and local traffic.
Yeah.
So the commission's in charge of
Yeah,
that.
and
Yes.
listen, over the years, they've done a great job, but there's certain things like when you change something that as major as that affects that many people, you really need to get it out there and really, let it permeate a little bit in
So
public.
Steve, if there's an aggrieved person that has a sign on their front lawn, a stop sign, and they want that removed, their remedy is to go to the commission and say this is
Mhm,
wrongful,
mhm.
and then that commission has the final say?
Yeah, there's really no.
And
There's no
there's-
appeal.
Yeah.
There's no
I mean,
appeal.
there's no remedy that's an appeal process. It goes right back. to
And
us.
Steve is mentioning a stop sign. I'm worried about bigger things.
Yeah, I
I'm
am
worried about, okay, stop. It's annoying or whatever,
I'm
but,
just using that as an example
Yeah.
of recent example.
No, I
that-
understand,
Minor,
I understand, yeah.
but and by the way, anybody can go and listen to police commission stuff, but any of these commissions, if you're not an ex officio or something, you're not going into the executive session where sometimes some of the more
That's right.
difficult
Yeah.
things do. So I'm not exactly sure how to make it, I don't want to say accountable or deeper. you
Right,
know?
I was going to say, what does this look like in the real world? Is it approval on decisions from the Board of Selectmen?
And
Is
then maybe
it-
there's resources that could be pulled in for them, but not pulling in because it's three people who are volunteers again, and probably with disparate levels of ability. But my view is the police commission oversees the police, make sure, obviously, an advocate for them as appropriate. But you're not the buddy, you're not riding around the car, you're,
That's right.
and that's an
No, I
important
hear
thing
what-
to,
yeah, I
right? So I don't know how to I don't know how to address that. And, for years, Stuart, my dear friend, he was police exceptional,
Oh, yeah.
but you're not planning for the exceptional. You're planning for the
Regular.
everyday, right? And if you get the exceptional, that's terrific. So that's something that concerns me. I'm not exactly sure how to address it, but I think we should think about it.
Now, one of the first things I did when I was in, for better or worse, is I bid out the health plan
Mhm.
and at all the various providers and bid and went through it. And I'm used to this and I know what to ask for and look for, but that wasn't enough. That wasn't even close. The fire commission, the police commission, not so much the three people, but the unions under them with them they were constant. There's such a lack of trust of anything from a town hall. And there was then as well. So I went through every single reason why this makes sense. It would cost less and it would give you this addition and that addition. And I'm used to all this stuff. And I was the final course at the bank as well. I got an inside look at how it functions and how it works. And it's not just about the commission, it's about the unions, because there has to be that working relationship.
Which we want.
And
right? We're our
once
partners.
it goes sour,
Yeah.
and it did twice,
Yeah.
it did right after I came in, it was already sour.
Yeah.
And then and then again, maybe 3 years later, I had to go through all this again. By then, I knew all of these people, young and old.
Yeah.
Because I'd been through the health insurance upgrade.
I would argue.
So
that-
it's hard,
I think
it's
that's why-
really hard.
I think that's why I made the comment that
at some point, there was some language that I wrote down that I wanted to, that there should be something in coordination with the Board of Selectmen, because what that does is it brings in the resources of human resources, obviously, because unions are a big part of both police and fire. They have expertise in that office on dealing with the contracts, because actually, quite frankly, I don't get involved in the union negotiations until the very end.
Well, you have a paid outside person now. I
Yes.
didn't have that.
Yeah.
So, Deanna, are you recommending something, and tell me if I'm wrong, but that the commission would, let's say we're talking about a major thing like, I'll say appointing the police commissioner, right?
Right.
That the commission would recommend somebody and then the Board of Selectmen would ratify it, something like that? Is that what you're thinking?
That could be,
Yeah.
that's actually a really good one. Or, with the local, I mean, there are some issues with the local traffic
So like
authority.
almost like a subcommittee, and then it goes to a big
Yeah.
group to say,
Yeah.
yes, we ratify it, and absent some major objection, they would ratify it.
And
right?
maybe you put some guardrails around the things that need to go to the Board of Selectmen.
That's right, so it's not everything.
Yeah, because you
Just
don't want
major
it to be
issues.
unwieldy
No,
and.
And over
Can-
consuming.
Can you guys give that some thought, the
Yeah.
three of you,
Yeah.
what you think would be a good procedure? Because I think it's a big topic worth
Yep.
like a lot of discussion.
Yep.
And I will say, I think one of the things is some of the things that really become issues happen in executive session. So somehow you have to have
Is
either
Deanna
be
in
invited,
those?
you could be
You're not.
invited into, well, you could be,
I'm not ex officio on.
but one could be invited into, but I think there has to be a deeper working relationship with that.
Why don't you guys think about that and come back with
Yeah,
recommendations?
I would love it because I've tried to
It
figure
gets me
this out
nervous.
and I'm not sure. I mean, would the traffic issues also go through P and Z as a possibility? I'm not sure. Would they go through the parking commission? That's another
Yeah.
underutilized
Yeah,
perhaps.
and again, we have to like not get it too heavy.
But I don't,
Granular.
I don't think it's,
But there,
I
but
never
this
think
is a
it's
big
a
one.
mistake of more than one level of review.
Yeah.
I never think
Yeah,
that's
it's
a
a-
mistake.
Amy, I know we're running out of time.
I know.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to ask you one other question. I guess
Yeah.
I asked
Yeah.
Steve and Deanna, 5, 3, as far as selectmen, you good with 3? From your
Look,
side?
the way the state works, right? It could be 5 and it could still be 4 of one party, 1 of another. Okay?
Okay.
Is that
So-
right?
Yep.
Um,
and so,
Does
um,
3, 2 help
I-
you,
it-
or is
look,
it the same
it-
difference, 3,
It's
2,
an
1?
interesting place to be. So 3, I think this group works pretty well together.
Yeah, sure you
The
do,
way
yeah.
communications worked, I am not allowed to have the same level of communication with Deanna that Steve is. That's kind of just how it worked, which I
Yeah.
think is unproductive. It's not anybody, it's no one's
it
here's
is what
fault,
it is, yeah.
but it's what it is. A lot of the stuff we do is pretty unsexy. And
Yeah,
I don't think you need another person to talk about, all right, we gotta do the guardrails. How much does that budget cost? If you talk to 3 people about it, and here's the cost, and this is why it's going up. So a lot of our stuff is that. So I
so
think
not perfect, but not bad.
it's fine.
Yeah,
It's fine.
that's fine.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
say, in terms of, the 2 functions, the treasurer and the clerk's function, a clerk is a clerk. There's a reason as a clerk. It's very regimented what they have to do. I think if we can make, that function work better in town government, that would be good. I don't know why that's elected. It is
Which?
the town clerk. I don't know why it is. But it just is. I mean,
I know.
but it is pretty,
historical.
I mean,
But
I
you know-
imagine it's because of their role in running elections,
okay. so-
accountable to the
yes, but maybe
electorate.
The
that's the reason.
separation of powers and I get that part.
Yeah,
but
that's fine.
Yeah,
So,
but there can be
um,
trained to do that too.
The treasurer, I'm a bit, the treasurer used to be kind of just a titulary and a very small stipend. It ended up, the pay got kicked up to 20. I was in Board of Finance. I was in favor of it when it did. I felt in this town, and given the depth of the bench of the people here, there would be a million incredibly qualified people that would be delighted
I
to
agree.
spend some time doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say I know 100% what the role of the treasurer is. I mean, I kind of looked at it, it's barely mentioned. But I do understand that a good chunk of it is investing our short-term cash. When I was in the Board of Finance, I was on the subcommittee with the pension. And the way we handle that, we interview a bunch of groups, they come in and they do, we agree, they propose us for, we look at it, we review it every quarter. I'm sure you can do that in similar
But
cash
the
management.
treasurer doesn't have the checkbook, the CFO does, right?
No, they sign.
They-
They have the legal
They have
authority.
to,
Yeah.
they have to sign,
Yeah.
they have to approve any expenditure over $250,000. And yes, and then the checks get signed through, that. And then they invest the short-term cash.
But the point is, there are professional organizations out there that are much tighter to it. And we could most likely, just like we do with the pension, have a group, interview people and have a short-term investment strategy, and they can report quarterly, like when we did the pensions. So, and again, this is the role. This is not the person. I'm just not going to run. And my thing is, you don't want to keep increasing staffing and costing when you don't have to, right?
Understood.
So it was 20, then it's 40, and people want a cost of living increase. And I'm just sitting there going, we're not doing this for money. And there's plenty of people who are delighted to do it with a great skill set. And so I'm just sure it's needed.
Not to be repetitive, but I inherited that job when I became first selectman
Mhm.
because that was your job. It was part of the job.
Things have changed quite.
Well, God almighty, right? I was the first one to put it in the first charter. But because I don't think it should be under the first selectman. But the fact was, it was my job. So I had inherited John Laird and Roger Smith. And then I brought in Spangler and Butnick almost immediately, and certainly Kathleen's short time. I had a cadre of people to call on to look at this that had more insight and input than any one person.
Yeah.
My issue is not elected, appointed as much as it is the level of review. And we have those people on Board of Finance. I want more than one person looking at it, especially in this market.
But
I was in
Judy,
a market.
I do think you could probably get a
Yeah.
Vanguard or Fidelity or somebody to do
We
kind of
have-
the same services we
Right.
do with our long-term investments for a short term. And that would,
Yeah.
and then they would present.
And then they should present certainly to the audit committee. The
Yeah.
CFO should run the day-to-day regardless of
That's right.
whether it's
Yeah.
elected or appointed. That's here or there.
That's
So, yeah, I mean, it could go a number of ways,
Mhm.
but it's, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Amy,
All right.
thank you so
Hi.
much for your
Thank you,
time.
guys.
Andrew,
Can I quickly comment on that?
And-
Sure,
Andrew,
so-
we decided in the beginning of the meeting that we're not going to we're only
Well, that was
questioning
with
for us.
Deanna. What do you
Yeah,
think?
But
no,
wait a
I
minute,
think
wait a
no.
minute. Is
We're
Andrew
not-
coming at some
You're
point?
coming into
Yeah, come in.
4
with-
weeks now, after a town council. You're coming in after town
Yeah,
council.
we're not taking
Yeah.
questions today, unfortunately.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to correct something, but that's fine.
Okay, but we're not taking.
Thank you.
And
All
just
right.
real quick, Amy, when we're talking about police commission and the changes, is that just apply to the fire as well in the
Yeah.
same sense? Okay, I just want to clarify that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot to ask from 3 people, honestly. And you may have the right, there's a lot of skill set there, and people step up all the time, and which is great, but sometimes
Mm,
I would feel like if I was in that position 3, I would probably want a little more backup.
I think so too.
I just think so. And it's no criticism of the individuals doing it at all.
No, it's
at all.
just, it's
It's
just
a lot to do.
good. It's just good, sensible way to manage anything.
Yeah, and I'm not
Especially
talking 12
money.
people, maybe that's
Especially
a 5
money.
versus 3.
Yeah.
So,
Thank all
Thank you,
3
guys.
of you,
Thank
and
you.
Nick,
Yeah.
he's not here anymore.
I
You
know,
guys
but
have
that's
been
all right.
so
He knows.
helpful. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Are we meeting tomorrow?